Alrighty, welcome everybody. We will get started. The session is being recorded, so we can just share it for the people that aren't attending. But firstly, welcome to the release webinar for Travel Operations Release 2.28. We appreciate the time you've taken, regardless of your time zone. So my name is Lachlan, and I'm the Customer Success Manager based in Australia. We have a packed agenda with lots of new functionality, and my colleague Kim will guide you through the next 30 minutes.
Cheers, Lachlan. My name's Kim Buey. I'm one of the senior business consultants in the customer success team based in Australia. I'll be providing context around the new features that are part of this release. Hope you're doing well, and back to you, Lachlan.
Thanks, Kim. Appreciate it. So just moving to the next slide, our objectives as part of our release management process. We want you to have the best starting point when entering the testing phase of the release. The webinar is an important component of the release process. Regardless of your knowledge and prior experience with release management, the webinar is to share with you some of the features in the release. So just a bit of housekeeping here, as you can see on the screen. We will put the webinar into TravelDocs for you. That'll be done over the next 24 hours following the webinar. The release content is available in TravelDocs content. That'll be the release notes, which hopefully you should already have access to within the TravelDocs environment. We do obviously accept Q&A, so there is a Q&A session here. Just click on the Q&A session at the top of the webinar, and we can answer any questions. We generally leave them till the end, but yeah, please raise those questions in there, and I'll be checking them while Kim's presenting. At the end of the day, to reach out to your business consultants if there are any questions you want to cover off directly with your own contacts that you have. Alrighty then. So just clicking over to the agenda for today. Firstly, I'd just like to introduce you to a new colleague of ours who's just joined us in the release management process, Akhil. I'll introduce him shortly to you. He'll say a quick few words. We'll also share with you the versions in this release, which will obviously release 2.28 and the Microsoft updates. And then Kim will cover the new functionality, and we'll just walk through that, which is the travel, reconciliation and finance, and the credit card and external reporting. Following that, we'll have the Q&A sessions and answer any questions that you address. But as mentioned, if you don't ask questions here, you can definitely ask questions of your business consultants that you liaise with on a day-to-day basis. So let me introduce you to Akhil. Akhil Prasad is based in India. You can see him on the screen here. Akhil, I'll hand over to you just to sort of give a brief introduction to yourself and say hi to everybody within the world of travel operations that utilize the enterprise platform.
Hello all, this is Akhil, and I'm the release manager here. So I've been with TravelOps for roughly a month and a half. So trying to blend within the process over here and try to move along and see how the process is being run especially for the release and the releases. I'm here to put a few more improvements for the betterment of delivering the code and the product. I've been into release management for maybe 10 years, roughly 10 years. So yeah, that's about me.
No, fantastic. Thanks, Akhil. Appreciate the insights there. Just move to the next slide, and then I can let Kim jump into it. So the release itself, it usually contains a minimum of 2 packages. As you can see, it's definitely the enterprise package or release 2.28. And we also obviously include Dynamics, the 365 update. However, for this release, we will not be releasing the Microsoft Finance and Operations update. We found an error in the code when we were doing regression testing on our side with the RSAP feature. So what we're doing, we're actually skipping the 10.0.44 of the Microsoft release, and then that will obviously be included in a new version upcoming, which is the release 2.29, and that'll include the update of the Microsoft release 10.0.45. So just letting everyone know the main thing about this release here, it's all been tested on the Microsoft release 10.0.43. So that's what we'll be releasing, and some of you have already got that into your test environments. So just a quick update on that. Any questions, concerns regarding that, please just raise it with your business consultants, and they'll be able to help you out from there. So I'll now hand over to Kim to walk you through the release content. Over to you, Kim.
Cheers, Lachlan. Again, the intention of the webinar is to provide a quick overview of the release, highlighting features that are relevant for most users of enterprise, as well as some config tips. And generally, your customer success consultant will also go through in detail with you to highlight specific items that might be interesting for your implementation. We'll start with the travel sales order as our first area of focus for release 2.28. We'll discuss enhancements relating to descriptions on the invoice journal postings, new validation for GST or VAT for sales lines, an ability to inherit the dimensions from the sales order headers, an adjustment to how the credit line on the sales line can be used, and new functionality that can set voids on uninvoiced flight TKTs. Firstly, there's been an enhancement to the description that is posted on the subledger customer transaction when a travel sales order gets invoiced. This can help you when you're reviewing customer transactions in the accounts receivable or credit and collections module with more information shown, like the sales order number and the traveler name, which you can see highlighted in the top right-hand screenshot in the description column all the way on the right-hand side. Configuration is done within the organization administration setup default description screen. This specific scenario requires configuration on the sales order invoice customer default description. You'll need to configure the parameters similar to how it is shown on the bottom right, with the numbered wildcards shown as percentage signs in the text section, picking up the sales order and traveler from the relevant invoice that was posted. Similarly, we have made changes on the vendor invoice side, so it's able to be configured similar to the customer transaction side, which you can see on the left-hand screenshot there. In the default description screen for ledger postings, you'll want to configure the sales order invoice ledger setting. The item sales tax group is a field on the sales line that helps determine if VAT or GST should be calculated and recorded based on the sell and cost price of the product. These are automatically calculated based on the VAT GST setup screen, which can be found in the travel module, which derives whether a sales line should be considered taxable or not, based on the item category and the travel areas of that travel. Occasionally, this process resulted in a blank item sales tax group being calculated. The common scenario where this happened was if the product was booked to a destination that wasn't found in enterprise and was thus auto-created. During the auto-creation of the destination, it isn't able to derive the area of travel at the time of booking, which has the end result of there being a blank item sales tax group and the risk of tax not being calculated properly for that booking. This new development allows you to configure on the item category whether it's required for invoicing to have an item sales tax group, so that if it isn't there upon manual or auto invoicing, it can be fixed by a user before being invoiced. I would recommend setting this up for all the item categories that you currently use on a sales order if you want more control over your VAT and GST postings. For reference, see the bottom right-hand corner screenshot. To set this up, navigate to Travel Setup Base Data, Item Categories, and for each item category that is invoiceable, in the mandatory section, set mandatory item sales tax group to be yes. We've added a new functionality relating to financial dimensions on a travel sales order. This new setting allows you to configure an option to always inherit the dimensions from the sales order header. What this means is that once a sales order is created, all new sales lines will inherit the same dimensions from the header and ignore the default dimensions of the consultant who may have created additional lines. This scenario may occur if a sales order is imported with a particular sales related cost center as an example. However, the finance user who is working on the sales order has a default cost center dimension that is related to a head office cost center. This can cause the postings and reporting to be incorrect. This new setting helps avoid that. Though this new configuration might not be suitable for all implementations, as you may want different dimensions on the sales order lines compared to the header. Or perhaps you already default dimensions in some other way, so you don't need to take any action. You're probably familiar with the credit line functionality, which can be found when highlighting a line in the sales order within the sales order line dropdown. There's an option to select credit line. Previously, you could use this on any sales order line, but we have now restricted it to just be able to be used on positive quantity lines. This is because the credit line functionality is only intended to be used on positive quantity lines and shouldn't be used for negative quantity lines, as it was causing unintended system behavior. If you need to create a new positive line based on an existing sales line, you can use the copy a new item number function and adjust the quantity manually as required. We have a new feature relating to voids in this release. If a void is imported from the travel integration and the related flight TKT remains uninvoiced for that sales order, both the void and the original ticket will be changed into a flight CXL or cancel item category. The service fees associated to the flight TKT and invoice fees associated to the sales order will be removed. If you believe this functionality will be of use for your travel agency, find the toggle in Travel Parameters, GDS, set up GDS readers, cancellation of refunds, and cancel sales line with voids. Okay, let's move on to review the new features that relate to travel reconciliation. We'll discuss a new reporting status flag on all the reconciliations, the option to handle fees in a customer reconciliation, a new filtering option on the settle vendor customer transactions batch job, and a new ability to rematch against vendor transactions on different vendors. On the BSP customer and vendor reconciliation, we have added a new reporting column which reflects the status or the bucket that the transaction was in when it was imported. As you can see from the screenshot, it shows that transactions might have started in the unmatched, matched, or other various filters upon import, but after a subsequent rematch, they end up in a different status. This could be useful in regards to troubleshooting the flow of a transaction from the initial import. The new column isn't on the grid as per default. However, you can use the add columns function to add them to your saved view, so it's there going forward. The customer reconciliation has been enhanced. A new mapping field has been added to help account for merchant fees. Please find the merchant fee option in the customer transaction input format, as you can see on the bottom right-hand corner screenshot, then use it to map it to the column in your customer reconciliation statement data. In this example, this is in the 8th column. The last step to configure this is selecting the account code to recognize the merchant fee expense, which we have set as a new travel parameter underneath import-export reconciliation and merchant fee account, which you can see on the left-hand screenshot highlighted in blue. So this will handle the journal that auto posts and recognizes the merchant fees. The settle vendor and custom import transactions batch job relate to the finance reconciliations, and they're used to process the settlement of transactions that are in the matched bucket of the reconciliation. So they are in the settlement queue. Once the batch job is run, it sets those transactions to be settled if they are balancing to 0. We've added a records to include filter to this job, allowing you to have more flexibility in being able to settle particular items from the queue. For example, you might want to only settle transactions which have a multiple settle session ID, as shown in the screenshot for both the settle customer and settle vendor import transactions batch jobs. With this update, we have added a new index to the settlement queue table to improve the performance as well. Note that because the parameter form has changed for this batch job, this will be one of those ones which you'll need to recreate fresh after it's deployed to production. Okay, we've added the ability to match a vendor transaction against a different vendor on the vendor rec, different to the one that the reconciliation file was originally loaded in as. This has the potential to save you time, so you don't need to manually journal a transaction from one vendor to another to complete your match. Find this new option on the vendor reconciliation while you're on the Unmatched tab, selecting the Rematch against specified vendor underneath the Rematch dropdown. Once you select that option, it will pop up the new form as shown in the top right-hand corner, which allows you to select one or more vendors to rematch against. You might find this useful if you have a scenario where the statement file that you received from the vendor had some bookings that were loaded against a different vendor from the original invoice on the sales order. This helps you avoid manually posting the journal to move the booking to the other vendor. Okay, now we come to our last topic of the day, various topics across Travel Enterprise. We'll discuss more fields being available on the customer create remark, some free text invoice layout enhancements, some enhancements to the sales line upload template, and an improvement to credit card files in terms of the administration setup requirements for them. There is an existing GDS command that allows you to create customers during the booking import process. By default, it is the CNC remark. In this release, we have added the option to set the language as well as the currency of the customer at the time of creation. The benefit being that when the first invoice is sent out shortly after the customer is created and the sales order is invoiced, it will be in the correct language and the currency for the customer without needing to manually amend it before you invoice. See the syntax below where you can see that the default language and currency have been set in the remark. You can see those last two elements in that string. ENGB is the language and DKK is the currency in this example. The free text invoice layout has been updated, now allowing you to display the due date on the printed invoice so that the customer can clearly see when the invoice is due. You also now can modify the label of the terms of payment from the default. You can see in this example, just above the due date, that the label has been amended to be terms of, but you can set this however you like. To amend the configuration for this label, as well as all other available labels, navigate to Travel, Setup, Administration, Layout Configuration, Free Text Invoice Layout Header Setup, and add the description that you would like to amend from the default, then add the label description. We have a few new updates to the sales line upload template, which is a tool that can be used to create lines in the sales order in bulk from an Excel spreadsheet, either by referencing an existing line or creating a completely new one for a sales order. In this update, we added a new column called commission percent, which allows you to import a commission percentage to the sales line that's being loaded, if a commission value is applicable on the cost side of the line that you're loading. The vendor due date has also been added, which allows you to load the due date that will be applied to the vendor invoice that is potentially posted when the sales order is posted. In more changes to the sales line upload template, we've updated the functionality to process the word blank in the merchant reference code and customer payment reference columns, so that when you copy an existing line, it will set these values to be empty rather than copying the existing value from the reference sales line. If merchant reference code is set to blank, then the payment provider and original payment provider information will be removed at the same time. Please find the latest templates on TravelOps underneath release notes, enterprise templates, and release 2.28, where you will find the latest sales line upload template, as well as the latest XML schema relating to this release. And lastly, we've fixed a historical setup complication that required a hierarchy attribute to be set up to allow credit card reporting to export correctly. We've improved this code so it no longer needs specific hierarchy attributes to be set up to enable reporting in the credit card files, which will be especially useful if you report at a lower level than brand. And that's everything for today. So I'll hand over back to Lachlan to check if there's been any questions throughout.
Thanks, Kim. Appreciate it. Yes, no questions have been raised, so we'll wrap up. So firstly, thank you everyone for participating on today's call. As previously mentioned, you can view the recording of this webinar in TravelDocs, and all the relevant release information will also be available in TravelDocs. And as always, please reach out to your local contacts to be able to help you and support you through release 2.28. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.